It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of March 6, 1998. And we have 8 movies to get to. We got a lot of films to get to, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump on into it. And we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, a release so big it was only $800,000 away from knocking Titanic off of the #1 spot after 12 weeks. But Titanic is still the #1 film, but this film came pretty close. I guess you could say it's a spin-off of The Fugitive, Tommy Lee Jones and Wesley Snipes in U.S. Marshals. I mean, in a way, it's kind of seen as both a sequel and a spin-off to The Fugitive, which, I mean, you could probably say both of them at the same time. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones was one of the more notable things about the original Fugitive, winning an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in that film. This time around, it centers around him, Sam Gerard, once again played by Jones. It follows him and his team as they pursue another fugitive played by Wesley Snipes, who attempts to escape government officials following an international conspiracy scandal. And the cast also includes people like Robert Downey Jr., Joe Pantoliano, Daniel Roebuck, LaTanya Richardson, Tom Wood, Kate Nelligan, and needless to say, it doesn't necessarily fit the same bar that the original Fugitive movie had. I mean, it feels like in that trailer they're just copying so much of what made The Fugitive so special. But that being said, though, it is not a bad movie by any means. Far from it. I would actually say that I kind of like it a lot more than most people do, and it mostly is because of the performances by Tommy Lee Jones and Wesley Snipes, and even Robert Downey Jr., who I know at this time was kind of on that path where he was taking a lot of drugs and he was getting a bad rap, but in this movie, he's actually playing it pretty well here. He has a good performance in here. The action overall is very good. There are times when it does get pretty annoying when it comes to trying to copy what made the original Fugitive movie so special. Like, you see it in the trailer right there. You see, like, the things that they're trying to have. Like, they're trying to have Wesley Snipes have this big Harrison Ford moment where he's jumping up, where instead of jumping off of a dam, this time he's jumping off of a building and landing on a train. But at the same time, though, I mean, we've seen this before, and it's not really all that special or all that unique in any way, shape, or form. But then again, it also may not help the fact that the director of this, Stuart Baird, is not the best director. He's a great action editor, but as a director, most of his movies are not very good. I mean, Executive Decision just barely got by, and the next movie made after this was Star Trek Nemesis, which is seen as one of the worst Star Trek movies. And it also doesn't help that you have a first-time writer on this movie, John Pogue, who... I'm looking at his credits right here, and they are not that great. I mean, he's written stuff like The Scrolls and Rollerball, the infamous Rollerball remake, but is mostly known for being a producer on stuff like The Skulls 2, The Fast and Furious. He was co-writer on Ghost Ship. He wrote Quarantine 2 Terminal and Deep Blue Sea 3. He was directed that, and he also directed Eraser Reborn, which... yeah, this guy's not a great writer or director, too, so maybe that's why there is definitely a major step down in quality. And honestly, I think with a better writer and director, if you got Andrew Davis back, if you got the two writers from the first movie, Jeb Stewart or David Twohy, to make this movie work, I think they could have made it work. I think it would have been something very interesting and very fun. But like I said, it's not a bad movie per se. It works because of Tommy Lee Jones returning this character that won him an Oscar, and he is good in the film. And Wesley Snipes is very good in the film, and the action is very good as well. But at the same time, you kind of expect more from this movie after what The Fugitive did before 5 years prior to this, I should say. But yeah, a good movie, not a great film overall. Good for a one-time watch, but definitely is a major step down compared to The Fugitive. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie here, and that is Paul Newman, Susan Sarandon, and Gene Hackman in Twilight. Now all I'm imagining is Paul Newman and Gene Hackman as Jacob and Edward going after Bella, played by Susan Sarandon, a much older Bella and Jacob and Edward. But, of course, this is obviously not based on the Stephanie Meyers movie. And, you know what, I don't remember too much about this movie, but I'm pretty sure it's better than anything that came out of the Twilight movies, that's for sure. But, yeah, Twilight, this is a neo-noir thriller film from the director of Kramer vs. Kramer and Places in the Heart, and, Nobody's Fool was his last movie that he made. Basically, the story of this movie is that you have a retired detective accepting a simple task, unaware that it will tear open old, forgotten, but deeply wounds. And you could pretty much tell where this is going. I mean, this is pretty much something that's been done to death so many times. And it's not the best overall film, but it has enough talented people on board to really keep it going, like Paul Newman, Susan Sarandon, Gene Hackman. You also have Reese Witherspoon in here, Stockard Channing, Giancarlo Esposito, Liev Schreiber, Margot Martindale, John Spencer, M. Emmett Walsh, James Garner, Clint Howard. I mean, there's a good cast involved in here, and this is a good film by this is a decent, not even a good film, it's a decent film for Robert Benton, who has not, is who, I mean, he had that little bit of a lull after Kramer versus Kramer and Places in the Heart, but he did come back with Nobody's Fool, and this is probably the last decently made film that he made. It's not a classic by any means necessary, but it certainly beats the crap out of anything that other movies with the name Twilight have associated with him. But the performances, I think, do carry it through, and I think the mystery aspect could have been a whole lot better, but it's those performances from those seasoned veterans that keep the film going, and you just really feel like there's a lot there that could have made this a classic. But as it is, it's perfectly fine for what it is. I'm glad I saw it, but it's not one I'd watch over and over again. Kind of like with U.S. Marshals. Good for a one-time watch, maybe, but it's not something I want to watch over and over again. So, certainly it's a lot better than the next movie we have here, and that is Jessica Lange and Gwyneth Paltrow in Hush. And that PG-13 rating is exactly why this movie will never be relevant whatsoever, because a PG-13 rated movie like this clearly shows that they do not give a crap about actually trying to tell a good story or going for it all. They want to get the teens in here because, heaven forbid, teenagers want to see a Jessica Lange movie where Jessica Lange wants to kill her daughter. I mean, pretty much, her daughter-in-law, I should say, but you pretty much know what this movie is going to be right from the get-go. There are no surprises whatsoever. There's nothing intriguing. There's nothing engaging. These performances are wasted by really good actors who deserve a whole lot better. It's an abysmal film. It's an abysmal movie that's so terrible right from the get-go. There's nothing about this movie that is redeemable whatsoever. Like, this movie deserves a lot better. These people deserve a lot better than this film. Like, it doesn't even try to hide the fact that the mother clearly hates this new person that's coming into her family's life. And it's just like if there had been a little bit of a hook to it, then maybe there might have been something interesting. But no, you pretty much know where it's going to go right away. It's a melodramatic Lifetime TV movie blown up for the big screen because you got all these big names in here. And it's just a mess on so many levels. It's not a good film. It's a really bad movie. A waste of great talent. I don't think I need to say too much more about this. Let's get away from this one and actually talk about a friggin' fantastic movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. If you really want me to fill some time here, I can give you some quotes for this movie, because this is one of the most quotable movies ever made. Where's the fucking money, shithead? It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look as your head goes into the toilet. Over the line! Market zero! This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps. I can go on and on if you want to, but I know my terrible impressions will do nothing to convince you to watch this movie, which you should watch this movie. And since I'm going to be talking about this movie whenever we get to the Reviewing Network Talks About, because this is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's number 13, actually, on my list of my favorite movies of all time. I'll just run through it real quickly. You got Jeff Bridges starring as Jeff Lebowski, who's an unemployed Los Angeles slacker and avid bowler. After a case of mistaken identity, he's introduced to this millionaire who's also named Jeffrey Lebowski. And when the millionaire Lebowski's trophy wife is later kidnapped, he commissions the dude to deliver the ransom to secure his relief, and the plan goes awry when the dude's friend, Walter, played by John Goodman, schemes to keep the full ransom. You also have Steve Buscemi, Philip Seymour Hoffman, David Huddleston, Julianne Moore, Tara Reid, John Turturro, as well as the stranger, played by Sam Elliott. And this is one of those movies it's one of those hard-to-believe stories. The Big Lebowski was not a big success critically or financially when the film came out, but as the years went on, it's become a strongly praised movie. The critical praise gets stronger and stronger over the years, and rightfully so, because it's one of the funniest movies ever made to a lot of people, and myself included. And I love Fargo. Fargo, I think, is the Coen brothers' masterpiece film, but this is the film that I watch over and over again. I mean, it's hard not to love this movie. It is so absurd. It is so weird. It has so many quotable lines to it. The dark comedy is perfect. The casting, top-notch. Jeff Bridges is amazing in this movie as Lebowski. John Goodman is great in this film. I just realized that this is the fourth John Goodman movie we've talked about in 1998. And the first two were terrible films, Fallen and Blues Brothers 2000, and slowly but surely he turned it around with stuff like The Borrowers, and now this. He's fantastic in the film. You have a great cast overall that I mentioned. The great trademarks that we love to watch in Coen Brothers movies. It's very well written. The comedy is perfected with both Bridges and Goodman leading to some of the film's funniest moments and the most quotable lines of the film. This is a quotable as all hell movie, and like, I want to go deep into this more, but I'm going to be talking about this when we do the Reviewing Network Talks About it, and we eventually get to this film, because I'm doing, if you don't know what I'm doing with that, the first few weeks, the first few months of that show, I'm going to be doing my top 30 favorite movies in video form. So each week it will be a different movie that's ranked in my top 30 favorite films, and this one we'll definitely get into when we eventually delve into that. But all I can say here, man, is that The Big Lebowski is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's a hilarious comedy, a brilliant cast overall. I don't think I need to tell anybody to go check this movie out, because if you have not seen it already, you really need to go see this film. You are not going to be disappointed by it by any means necessary. The Big Lebowski, a phenomenal film. What more do I have to say about it? See this film. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is Everest. And no, this is not the 2015 Everest movie, which is a great film, by the way. You should actually go check that out. And honestly, you could see that movie on an IMAX screen and you'll get the full enjoyment out of it. But no, we're talking about Everest, the movie that pretty much introduced a lot of people to the IMAX theater, because this became the highest grossing film ever made in the IMAX format. And the 45-minute documentary is narrated by Liam Neeson, and it's basically a description of the training required in order to climb the nearly 30,000 feet to the summit of Mount Everest and the challenges facing during the ascent, such as avalanches, blizzards, oxygen deprivation. I mean, we've seen these we've seen these done in many other different forms of movies and television. Family Guy did an episode where the family had to go up the top of Mount Everest, and of course the Everest movie that we talked about. And I gotta say, this movie would have been awesome to see on IMAX. Like, to see the views of Mount Everest on an IMAX screen. Like, it'd be really cool to feel like you're actually there. And this feels like a film that most people would never be able to do this, but this is a chance for you to see what it would look like if you had gone up on Everest. It's an amazing little documentary. It's only 45 minutes long. It's not a long film whatsoever, but you do get so invested in what's going on here, and they got to give a lot of credit to the directors of this, Greg McGillivray and David Brashears, who put together a phenomenal looking film that just fits the IMAX format so well. Like I would have loved to see this on the biggest screen possible. I mean, it's hard not to be impressed by the visual flair of the film. You do get invested in the storyline and all the challenges that these guys have to really go through in order to climb this mountain, and it's just a thrill ride on so many levels. Like, you get so invested, and the tension builds up so strong. You feel like you're almost there at times. It's an amazing documentary. I can't recommend it enough. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this might still be playing in some IMAX theaters, but not like on a regular basis. I think it happens every so often. They'll re-release this in theaters. But if this ever gets played in theaters again, I'd definitely go out and see this movie if I can find it somewhere. But it's an amazing film, man. I've seen the DVD for it. It's incredible to watch on there. I can only imagine what this looks like on the big screen, and I'd really love to see what this is like on a big screen one day. So yeah, that's Everest. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one we have here, Love and Death on Long Island. John Hurt plays a widower who doesn't like anything modern. He goes to movies and falls in love with this guy named Ronnie Bostic, played by Jason Priestley. And he then investigates everything about the movie and Ronnie, and after that he travels to Long Island City where Ronnie lives and meets him, and pretending that Ronnie is a great actor, and that's why Gills admires him. It sounds like a premise that's not really all that engaging or exciting, but it's got some pretty good reviews to it, and it does feel like there is more to it than they're letting on here. I have not seen this movie, so I can't really say if it's any good or not, but it's John Hurt, man. John Hurt does not usually turn in a really bad performance, and from what I've heard about this, he's actually really good in the film, as is Jason Priestley. And it's somewhat resemblance of something like Death in Venice, in a way, so that's really all I know about it, honestly. I wish I could say some more, but again, that's really all I know about it. But John Hurt does not usually turn in a bad performance, so I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being pretty good. So, quick one on that one, Love and Death on Long Island. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here, and that is the documentary, A Personal Journey with Martin Scorsese Through American Movies. I mean, right there, that's pretty much a perfect sum up of what this movie is. You have Martin Scorsese examining a selection of his favorite American films through 4 different types of directors that he has. He has the director as a storyteller, the director as an illusionist, such as D.W. Griffith and F.W. Murnau. The crew created new editing techniques, among other innovations, that made the appearance of sound and color possible later on. The director as a smuggler, such as filmmakers like Samuel Fuller, who used to hide subversive messages in their films, and the director as an iconoclast, who was filmmaking attacking social conventionalism, such as Charlie Chaplin, Orson Welles, Elia Kazan, Stanley Kubrick, Arthur Penn, Sam Peckinpah, and he goes all throughout these different eras of movies. We go all the way back to 1925 to modern day films too, so it's not just a specific period of films. We're going all over the map on this, and it's a fascinating documentary to watch. He has all these different movies and clips that he uses here. And it's a very intriguing film, and I like the idea that Martin Scorsese, throughout his legacy, that had been pretty much already set by this point, he's learning along with everybody else while they're making these movies, because he can look at newer filmmakers and still learn from them. And I think that's a really fascinating concept for a documentary here. And for a documentary that's over 3 hours long, you never get bored by it. For anyone who has a hardcore movie lover like myself, I can easily get invested in this because of, you can see just the passion that Scorsese has with these movies that he shows in these clips in here. And I think it's very well done. I think it's a very well-made documentary. I'd highly recommend checking it out if you can find it somewhere. A personal journey with Martin Scorsese through American movies. It works very well. So with that said, on to the last movie, and that is Jon Bon Jovi in The Leading Man. Definitely a very different role for Jon Bon Jovi than what we're used to seeing. He plays a brash American actor who goes to London to feature in this major new play, and the playwright of the production is having an intense affair with the leading lady, and his wife of 14 years suspects that her husband is cheating on her and cannot suppress her rage. And Robin, Bon Jovi's character, comes up with an intriguing plan to seduce Felix's wife to end hassling her husband. And in desperation, Felix agrees, but soon faces a dilemma in that he feels increasingly jealous of Robin's attempts to seduce his willing wife, especially when he charms and attempts to seduce her, and the other members of the production have become too popular at Felix's expense. And he's caught in this web of dissent and jealousy, prompting him to seek revenge on the opening night of his production. And it's a very intriguing film, and like I said, it's mostly because we don't usually see Jon Bon Jovi in these type of roles like this, and it seems like it could be something pretty interesting. Like, I've never seen this movie before, so I can't really say if it's any good or not, but definitely has a lot of possibilities to it. I actually really am curious to see if this movie actually pans out as well as I think it does. You have Tandy Newton in here, Barry Humphries is in this as well, so there's a good cast involved in here, so could be pretty good. But like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't really say if it's any good or not, so, but my interest is definitely peaked. That's The Leading Man. So with that said, that wraps up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, another film gets ever so closer to surpassing Titanic as the #1 film at the box office, and this time it's a film with Leonardo DiCaprio, The Man in the Iron Mask. And did it ever come close? Not really, but it was the big new release for this next week, and we'll definitely get into that one, along with Carrot Top in Chairman of the Board. Hell yeah, says no one ever with that film. And we also have the re-release of Martin Scorsese's Mean Streets. So 3 films to look at overall, 2 newer films, and a classic movie. So we'll delve into those next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. So thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. And until then, as always, take care.